On April 16, 2007, a man named Sing-Hai Chow opened fire on innocent students attending Virginia Tech University. Chow was born in South Korea, and he was in his senior year at the university. After purchasing 50 rounds of ammunition from the local store, Chow began to open fire straight into a classroom before 7:15 a.m. These shootings continued until 10:53 a.m., until the police called and said they had the suspect in custody. Within the shootings, 32 people were killed, and others were severely injured. After this devastation occurred that ensued, many students united to create an image. The image is of a ribbon, created by text that includes unanswered questions addressed to the shooter and the madness that surrounded the event. This image was published in the Virginia Tech Collegiate Times on April 20th, 2007, 4 days after the shooting. Students were still in shock and unable to get answers for the horrific events that had occurred, so they united to create a powerful art piece and helped communicate their frustration and questioning visually. Today I want to explain how not only this image raised awareness in order to create support for the victims of the Virginia Tech shooting, but how it allowed for powerful statements and emotional ties the students expressed in the aftermath of the madness. After a tragedy, there is always a statement that should be said, while other statements are omitted. In fear of offending anyone or seeming insensitive to the victims, their families and words of condolences and prayers were sent to those trapped in the nightmare of this tragedy. Unfortunately, Chow had committed suicide, and after attacking his fellow peers, left many with questions that were seemingly impossible and left unanswered. In efforts to voice their disbelief and distress, the student body created a visual that allowed for them to ask the tough questions, while still supporting their fellow fallen peers and their families. Some of these questions are directly asked to the school and the facilities, while others are asked directly to Chow. Examples of this are seen in the ribbon as, "What happened in Norris?" and "Why Norris Hall?" Since illustrations follows the concern with the facilities being opened with "Why Norris Hall?", it is seemingly integrated with concerns for the university as a whole, including others who were stuck looking in on the madness from the outside. In retrospect, the attack could have occurred on any hall, but the fact that it was specifically Norris left students thinking over, what if? What if it had been my hall? What if it was their hall? What if it was any hall? Discussions like this on the shooting brought it to a much more personal level. With disarray and confusion apparent, people tried to look for a reason to rationalize what had happened. If a motive was present, maybe they would understand why a desperate Chow could have done such a horrific act. Or if they knew him better, maybe they could have stopped him completely. In a broader sense, the visual rhetoric does an excellent job of encompassing a wide variety of serious questions that left people wondering how they could have prevented such a tragedy, or even how they were supposed to move forward with their lives. Not only does this visual story encompass the prevailing questions that surround many people's lives after the shooting, but the illustration incorporates many principles of visual rhetoric. According to Campbell, visual rhetoric is based around 3 principles. Visual messages are pervasive and threaten to eclipse the influences of the spoken and written word in the 21st century. Visual messages are violent, eliciting positive and negative responses simultaneously. And visual messages are efficient, emotional, and thematic in a way that they persuade. In the first instance, visuals tend to make longer lasting impressions on the human mind. This being said, by utilizing imagery to display an article, the message is more likely to be received and remembered in the eyes of the audience. Campbell states, educators now refer to children as visual learners and embrace visual pedagogy. By incorporating a way for information to be received in a visual context, a Collegiate Times makes a more impactful image and utilizes a more efficient method to ensure that their statement is remembered by a generation that is so heavily impacted by the saturation of images. Secondly, the creator of the image draws the attention of the reader by incorporating the text with the image. It both catches the reader's attention and it gives an image and a visual to impact the story further. Additionally, with a clean layout, it is permissible use of dead space. The image is centered and highlighted on one page, thus highlighting the importance of this article. Finally, the symbolic ribbon It applies to other visual rhetoric because it is wrapped and shaped in a way that represents the familiar image of different ribbons that raise awareness for other causes. You see this in breast cancer awareness and leukemia awareness, military support, etc. This exemplifies the use of pathos because the symbolic meaning of the ribbon itself draws on the emotion of the reader. Furthermore, on top of having readers' emotional about the subject already, portraying support through the use of textual wrapping evokes a sense of unity within the community. United by tragedy, through the use of this powerful symbol, readers are able to identify with the victims and those emotionally affected by the events that ensued at Virginia Tech University on April 16, 2007. Although the overall presentation of the support ribbon illustration demonstrates the principles of visual rhetoric, there are still some ways it can be improved. Visually, the ribbon could have a pop of color and it would separate it from the rest of the article. If the textual ribbon was outlined with a color, it would just utilize the reader's emotions that are evoked through the introduction of certain colors. For example, blue evokes sadness, or blue evokes different emotions that you wouldn't see with just a plain border. To complete the visual, it would have been best if the creator of this image could have incorporated another small image. Otherwise, the image is centered and the reader's attention goes directly to the textual wrapping. Although the image is simple, it is very impactful and connotates a rather deeper meaning. Collegian Times has produced an image that utilizes simple imagery to convey a very impactful message. While the image contains many questions that seem as if they can be interpreted as insensitive or overwhelming, the creator utilizes symbolic meaning of support in the form of a ribbon to help portray the message of uncertainty and confusion. In utter disarray for the victims and those left scared by the impact of the Virginia Tech shooting, these visual rhetorics were able to open the eyes of the readers and allow everyone around the world to question what they were being asked of the shooter and how the students were supposed to move on after this tragedy. Although there are some aspects to visual rhetoric that could incorporate to make it stand out a little bit more and maybe slightly enhance it, the overall completion of the message of this visual rhetoric leaves an impactful message for everyone.